Hello everyone, and welcome to the second part of the lecture on geodynamics and visualization. From the previous lecture, you may remember that the Earth lithosphere is fragmented into several plates. So today we can count about 14 major tectonic plates. There are oceanic and continental plates, and some plates actually contain both a continental part and an oceanic part. So the lithosphere is fragmented into plates, and these plates are moving with respect to each other. You may also remember this figure here that shows you a model that uses GPS data and that shows you the velocity vector plotted on the different tectonic plates. So you see here we are centered on the Pacific. You see this fragment here. This is the Pacific plate, which is exhibiting a motion towards the northwest here. Next to this, you see the Australian plate, which is containing Australia here, and which is showing a motion towards the north. What's important about these motions is that they are generally coherent, so the velocity vector direction and intensity does not vary across the plate very much. And here you see that the maximum velocity is about 10 centimeters per year, and that's the Pacific plate, which is nowadays moving fastest at the surface of the Earth. But these plates, they are moving in a rigid way relative to each other. So what happens when two blocks are moving in different directions and are in contact at the same time? Of course, you should have deformation that is focused between the different plates. So there is deformation at the interface between the plates, and this is a map here showing you the second invariant of the strain rate. So what is this measurement? This measurement has the unit of the inverse of time, and it is proportional to the gradient of the velocity vector in space. So here you see the partial derivative of velocity that depends on coordinate with regard to the coordinate. So if you take this partial derivative, you have unit meter per second divided by unit meter. The meters will cancel out and you end up with unit 1/second. This is a strain rate. This is why you have this unit here. On this map of global strain rate, you see that the plate boundaries are very nicely highlighted because this is where most of the deformation is taking place. You have regions also where the strain rate is distributed on also inside the continents. So here it's not only focused on the boundary. These are the regions where you have active formation of orogens, for example. You also nicely see it in the Andes here. So this is an indication of where the deformation is taking place right now and at which intensity. So one thing we can do with the strain rate data, with this geodetic data, we can also distinguish the different types of deformation. So see here, you have on this map contractional deformation, strike slip deformation, and extensional deformation, which are represented by different colors. You see, for example, red here in the middle of the oceans, and this corresponds to mid-oceanic ridges. So mid-oceanic ridges are an example of extensional deformation. In this location, you have the mantle, which is being upwelling, and the oceanic lithosphere that moves apart from each other. So this is an example of extensional deformation along mid-oceanic ridge segments. A second type of deformation is indicated here in the yellow color as strike slip. So strike slip motion, it's basically when you have a fault and the direction of the motion is along the strike of this fault. So these two blocks move past each other, and of course this creates focus deformation at the plate interface. Strike slip segments are, for example, observable here on the west coast of the United States. So you see this yellowish color here indicating the St. Andreas fault in this area. And a third type of deformation, indicated as contractional deformation, has the color blue here. And these are regions, for example, of subduction zones where plates are converging towards each other. So these are three styles of deformation. Now, think about this drawing again. You have plates, but these plates are actually on a globe and they move relative to each other. So what would happen if three plates meet? And actually, we talk now about triple junctions. So let's zoom on this region of the Earth. So we go to the eastern part of Africa. And in this region, now I'm depicting to you a digital elevation model from Google Earth here. You see blue regions, these are the oceanic regions, orange and green regions are continental regions. This is actually the Red Sea, that's the Gulf of Aden, and this is the East African Rift. So in this region of the world, we have three tectonic boundaries active and converging in one point. This is the triple junction. So the Red Sea is an active mid-oceanic spreading center. The Gulf of Aden also, and the East African Rift is a region where continental rifting is taking place and which may evolve with time also into a mid-oceanic ridge. But this would be in the far future. So what's important to realize is that three boundaries meet in this region, and this can be depicted with the following diagram here, where you can draw these three plate boundaries and identify the three plates involved in this triple junction. To the north, we have the Arabian plate. To the west, we have the African plate, and we talk about the Nubian plate here. And to the right, we have the African plate, and this is the Somalian part of the African plate. So let's zoom a bit more into this region, and what we will see now is the result of a GPS survey. So this is a recently published scientific paper here, and you see the transition here between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Somalia, Nubia, and Arabian plate are depicted there. And you see different arrows. And arrows are actual GPS measurements. So this is in unit millimeter per year. So 10 plus minus half a millimeter per year. And so these different stations here that are placed on land are showing the direction of motion. So you clearly see the relative motion of the Arabian plate being pulled out towards the northeast with regard to these tectonic boundaries there. So you clearly see the motion of extension. So you have a different velocity, direction, and magnitude on both sides here of the Red Sea, for example. So that's a very nice data set that shows you the triple junction in the alpha region. And this brings us towards the exercise of today's lecture, which is focused on visualization of a digital elevation model of the AFAR region. So what you're going to do, you're going to study the topography of the AFAR region, and you will use a notebook template and a data set which will be provided to you. We'll be working with Julia and VS Code and creating some interesting visualization of that region. The main aim of today's session is to keep on learning working with two-dimensional arrays. So for example, the topographic map will be represented by a 2D array, while the coordinates x and y will be 1D arrays. So we'll be working on that. You'll be visualizing the 2D maps and also some contours of altitude. You'll be filtering the data based on some criteria, usually altitude-related criteria. And also, we'll be computing gradients. So we compute the slope, the surface slope, for example. And this involves so computation of gradients, which will be a first step into modeling, which will start in the next lecture. Thanks for your attention.